Hello, lovely Kate. Thank you so much for joining me. It seems really weird for us to be doing this. We've never done anything like this before, you and I. It's always been live and in front of an audience or in front of people whenever we've worked together. So thank you so much. Please introduce yourself because I think it's nothing better than someone introducing who they are and what they do. Over to you.
So, my name is Kate Taylor, and for about 30 years now, I have written and researched exclusively sex and dating. So, I started off doing the GQ Sex Life column, and I've written 5 books. And now I work with online dating sites to help their members sort of navigate online dating, often for the first time, often over 50. But it's just this obsession with sex and relationships. Like, which I kind of thought it would calm down when I got to 50, but it hasn't. I'm still really interested in every aspect of it.
It's changed. The whole dynamic's changed. I mean, you and I have grown up together for the last 30 years in this
Yeah,
space. Me on the matchmaking side, you on the online. We've done filming together. We've done all sorts of stuff together, which has been wonderful. And I always
yeah.
really love the realness of what you talk about and
Oh,
the
you just have
honesty.
to, because
Yeah.
well, you just it doesn't serve anyone. But also, don't you find that when women get together, we talk in a no one hides
No.
anything. You know, it's like I found out I had for example, someone would say, I found out I had a tampon up there for 5 years and didn't feel a thing. And they'll go, well, I can beat that. You know, women, when they get together, that was a bad opening story, I feel, but I'm going to go with it.
I need to
Um,
dig deeper, but we'll talk about that one offline. Did that really happen? I'm taking that wasn't you.
no, that wasn't me. But yeah, you just have to. I think you have to talk
Yeah.
about it really in a sort of truthful way, because that's how you get the breakthroughs with each other, and that's how you make each other feel better. I've noticed that when men talk to each other, they're often kind of exchanging wins and successes,
Yeah.
and I don't feel that's how women really bond with each other. It's more like, I made a massive idiot of myself yesterday. Oh my god, so did I.
Yeah.
And sort of cheering each other up in a way.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to sex, you can't pretend everything's glossy and perfect.
No, no.
You
And
can't.
we are talking about sex and menopause. That's today's topic. And it's talking about, for some people, doesn't change at all. But when we often get clients, I'm obviously dealing with them on the emotional side. And if there's anything sexual, go talk to Kate. Um, but it's one of those things that people are a bit shy about because there's that vulnerability as there's
Yeah.
an acknowledgement you're getting older, your body's changing, your emotions are changing, that anxiety is creeping in.
Mm,
And it's hard enough when you're in a relationship and all of this is going on. But there's also, I want us to explore when you're dating
mm,
and having to have sex maybe for the first time post menopause or during menopause or during these changes. So let's start with the first things first is
mhm.
what's the most common thing that people come to you about when it comes to sex during menopause? What do people come to you and go, help, this is my biggest problem right now?
But remember, I'm not a sex therapist,
No.
so it's not like I'm helping people sort of deal with the kind
Yes.
of medical and
It's not the
gynecological.
medical, but it's the sort of psychological side that goes along with it.
A massive drop in confidence, and I think one of the first signs that you're going into the menopause or you're perimenopausal is the anxiety. You can start getting anxiety out of nowhere. So I think it's the sudden drop in body confidence, and your body changes during menopause. I mean, I'm in surgical menopause, so I had to have a hysterectomy nearly 2 years ago now. And sexually, it's been liberating because no more periods. You know, it's kind of, just drop and give me one like right now, anytime, any. But there are so many. But then there are so many changes that happen in menopause with your bits that nobody tells you about.
Mm.
So unless you've got your estrogen levels right, it will dry up. There will be a noticeable drop, but also the walls of it change. It becomes much less responsive. You can't feel as much, even when you're just sort of playing with yourself with a sex toy or something, just externally, you're gonna find that something that knocked your socks off when you were 20, now you need like a pneumatic drill to get the same kind of response. And nobody tells you this. It's not like you can go to your GP and talk that frankly. You can say things like, I've noticed a lack of response, or my partner and I are suffering because we're not connecting as much. But you can't say to them, it took me an hour and a half and I had to use like a nail file just to fix something. Is that normal? Should that be happening? So I think it's the lack of confidence, and obviously there's a kind of embarrassment, because I don't think you realize until you hit 50 how worried you were almost about hitting 50. Like when you're 20s, you have a lot of sexual confidence. It's sort of like an innate confidence, even if you're not bolstered up by really high self-esteem in your relationships, like I never was. You do know that you're of a desirable age. And if you're someone like I was in my 20s that took confidence from knowing that men wanted me, when you hit 50, it's almost like it's your own Logan's Run. I am no longer desirable, and how do I navigate that? That was a real switch for me. That hasn't been fun.
I'm hearing a lot of people around vulnerability. Most of my clients who are over 50, whether they're in a couple and they're navigating difficulties as a couple, or whether they're single, it's that whole vulnerability piece. And it's, how am I supposed to allow someone else to enjoy my body when I don't enjoy it myself right now? And I think that I felt that. I did feel that myself, and I went through that whole body confidence, not a body dysmorphia, but a body confidence thing. I was heavier than I'd ever been. I couldn't fit into the clothes that I would usually want to wear that made me feel sexy, and I didn't want to go out and buy a whole new wardrobe because I was determined to get back to where I needed to be. I did buy a new wardrobe in the end, but it's but it's one of those things that I think it doesn't matter how confident we are, how extroverted, or how much we know about these things, even as coaches and as people that work in this area, it doesn't stop the anxiety and the vulnerability from actually coming out. So
it takes you by surprise. It really does.
It does. And we know
you've
all the
always
things
been
textbook, don't we? We know it textbook, but actually going through it physically is something completely different.
Exactly. You kind of know, sort of like from the age of 40, 42, 43, you know that things are going to start changing, and you can like look ahead to that and think, well, if I get hot flushes or night sweats, I can go and talk to my doctor, or you can ask your mum what her experience was. And you can sort of go through. But as a Generation X person with a boomer parent, I talked to mum and said, how did you find your menopause? And she went, it's fine.
Yeah, I had the same thing. My mum said 50, she had her last period, and that was it. And she carried on, got on with it. And I'm thinking, did you sleep through the next 5 years? She says to me, I don't know what all this fuss is about nowadays when everyone's talking about menopause. I go, what the hell?
Yeah, we just got on with it in our day. But she's forgetting that I lived through her menopause.
Well, I actually started reminding my mother of all the things that she did to me when she was going through menopause, and how I actually moved out.
Mum kicked me out twice when she sailed through this blissful menopause. Her mood swings were
Sorry, mother, when you're watching this. Sorry, mothers.
So you don't have, but that's normally you wouldn't have someone to cope with it, because, well, to talk about it, unless we talk like we're talking now, in that most real, down to earth. And I think that's a really good thing that's happened. But sometimes as well, you don't feel that you can always talk to your partner about it.
No.
If you're
talk, is it? It's not a man's talk. Hey, have you noticed things are drying up down there, darling? Could you give me on a scale of 1 to 10 how different it feels? You're not going to have those conversations, are you?
Because you are, if you're someone, and honestly, this is such a mind shift for me to have, especially, and it's awful to say, but a lot of the time I was measuring my worth in terms of what I felt was my external desirability. It was kind of, that was a big thing for me. I made an effort, I played up to it, I liked being found attractive by men, so I couldn't go to my husband and say, I really think it's all changed down south. I've noticed my boobs are descending quite rapidly at a pace of 1 centimetre a week. I was trying to put like almost maybe how mum copes with it. I was trying to put a brave face on it, but
Not a
quietly.
weekly weather report of how things are going down south or up north.
But
Oh, great, that's so cool.
eventually I broke down and I just said to him, I'm so sorry, and cried and said, I'm struggling with this. I think this has changed. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that. And he couldn't have been nicer. And that was one of the nicest things that came out of actually being that vulnerable, is because until then I'd been coping with it by being really quite bitchy, quite aloof, taking myself away from, just going upstairs and Googling all these things and sort of not communicating. And when I actually said to him, I feel really ugly now, I feel dried up, washed up, and then he couldn't have been nicer.
Yeah.
But that felt risky, obviously.
Well, it does. And, I met someone who I've now moved in with. I did say to him when he moved in, are you sure? I'm at the tip of menopause right now as you're moving in. Are you really sure this is a good thing?
This is going to be a rocky road.
Yeah. This is going to be a fun one. If you weren't sure before now, speak now or forever hold your peace. Navigating that whole dating scene when you are feeling vulnerable, when you are feeling, well, no one's going to want me, that desirability even towards yourself goes,
Yeah.
is a tough one. But you do find the good ones that come out of it. I found someone who was so positive and so comforting and engaging, and was couldn't have been nicer about the whole process.
Lovely.
Very
Lovely.
supportive. And we do have a laugh about it. We really do. In fact, he said to me, he said, oh, I'll come on Fizz and Tell and say what it's like moving in with a woman going through menopause. I went, no, you bloody won't. That's taking vulnerability way too far.
But I think another thing, a horrible thing that menopause robs of you as well, is it's not just, I wrote a blog post about this, like dating during the menopause. It's not just physical, it's not just gynecological changes, it's every part of you, like your mental processing, the brain fog. You can feel like you have dementia. Apparently, statistically, 30% of women will worry they've got dementia as they go into the menopause. The forgetfulness. And I was thinking, like, how hard would it be to date when you've just got those symptoms going on? Trying to think of, because you think, well, maybe my body's changing and I'm really not sure what's happening down there, but I'm still the same person. I've still got a lovely sense of humor. I'm still bright, engaging. I can have banter on dates, and you want to showcase all that. But if it's one of those bad days when your mind just isn't working, you can't think of the references to make a funny remark to someone. You can't remember the name of the film you saw last week.
No, you can't remember where your keys were or where the phone is, and it's the amount of time I say, can you just ring my phone?
And you think, I used to be a bright, capable woman.
I know.
It's all going, and will it ever come back? Like, what's on the other side of this? Am I gonna change my whole personality with not having estrogen anymore mean that I don't care about anyone emotionally? What am I going to be like in a relationship?
Yeah.
It's a real, it's a big thing.
It is a big thing, and it's one of those things that just isn't talked about, which is why I think it's so great that we can sit down and have this this very open conversation about what it's really like to be someone who's in a very established long-term relationship like you are, and me not even quite 2 years into a relationship, and trying to navigate all of that side. So you've got vulnerabilities on both sides of it, haven't you? I mean, I've had some friends when I've sat down, I've even had clients say to me, I've hit this road, I know he's going to leave me. I know this is the end of my marriage. I know this is the end of my relationship because of what I'm going through. I'm like, he keeps telling me I'm just a different person. And the one thing I work with when I'm working with couples, and you probably do the same, is I always ask, what are your ages? And then I speak to the woman, what stage are you in hormonally
Yeah.
right now? Do you understand where you're at? And we have these full and frank conversations. Does your husband know if you say, oh no, I can't tell him? He'll just think I'm going mad, or, oh, you know, I've gone through problems with periods. I've been emotional every month. Now I'm emotional every day. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
all
It's like
that.
premenstrual tension all the time.
Yeah, on
But I
steroids,
think,
literally.
I mean, I'm basing a lot of this on my own experience, but I found as soon as I opened up and said, this is what I'm going through, and
Yeah.
you know, this is what I'm going through emotionally, not just this is what I'm going through with my symptoms. Because before I had my hysterectomy, I mean, the reason I had my hysterectomy was my periods were 3 weeks long, and that wasn't something that I necessarily wanted to kind of share,
Yeah.
you know, with my husband. Like, it's torrential this month. It's like,
Yeah. Oh, it's
Harry,
that weather report again. We have a tsunami
tsunami.
coming in.
But I obviously had to say to him things like, you know, it's not really a good time at the
Yeah.
moment, so sort of not tonight. But I had to eventually just say the emotional side, because otherwise, like I said, it was leaking out in other ways. And I think when you choose to sort of when you choose to navigate this by yourself, I don't think you can, because from the outside some of your behaviors and your change of attitude aren't going to make sense. And I think it would be really easy for a partner just to feel rejected or like you'd gone off them,
Yeah.
and it isn't that. But when you're feeling, sometimes when you're feeling really bad about yourself, that will come out in your relationship as being mean about them,
Yes.
or
Yes.
more possessive, or like, why were you talking to that woman at the party for so long, or I saw you looking at Susan, or
Yeah.
and it's not that you think that he's going off or losing interest. It's not that. It's more like you suddenly feel that you're just not as attractive, and it's almost like, well, why wouldn't you
Well,
look at
yes. Yes. And you know, I've often found myself in the past thinking, you know, well, you're not getting much from me right now because I'm running
yeah,
on empty. So I
why
wouldn't
are you
blame you.
staying?
So I wouldn't blame you. Off you go, kind of thing. There's there's
It's
that side of
horrible.
it as well. That, and I know I'm not the first one to actually ever think like that and feel like that. Probably vocalize it as well. But there is that almost. I don't know. Sometimes you feel. I think that's why I deliberately stayed single for so long, as I didn't feel I wanted anyone in
Okay.
that space. I needed to navigate who I was first, and actually get used to, what does this body now look and feel like before I
Yeah,
have anyone near it. So I think there's this whole stigma as well of, you don't talk about it to other people. I don't even remember talking to friends emotionally about my emotions, but not about how
mm,
I felt about my body, except saying,
yeah,
oh, I just feel a bit fat and frumpy right now. And you know, I remember walking into Slimming World, seeing all these people, and they all looked so happy. And I walked out, sat in my car, rang one of my friends, and said, I can't go in. I feel horrible, and just sat there sobbing. Like, I'm
oh,
reduced to this now. And it was the whole psychological. I felt like I was being reduced to something, rather than this was going to help me and support me and get
yeah,
back on. And the woman couldn't have been nicer. She's the sweetest woman. And but there's so much that's going on hormonally for us as well.
massive,
You know, I've gone through the 3 week period. In fact, it's only just starting to stop, but for
yeah,
18 months, 3 week periods, and you feel constantly drained, hormonal,
yeah,
this roller coaster, and you've got a lot to navigate, let alone having to navigate it with somebody else. And I think if you
yeah,
can't be authentic and real and have those conversations in a way that they're going to understand,
yeah.
one thing I always think, I don't know about you, Kate, is I always say to people, don't treat your partner like your girlfriend. You know,
In what way for you is that?
so for example, the types of conversations, I can have real, authentic conversations with Steve, not a problem at all. I can be really real, but I have to remember he's not one of my girlfriends that's going to give me those girly answers sometimes that I
Yeah.
look for. So if I rang you up and said, Kate, oh my God, da 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 da, you go, Jen, do da 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 da. You come up with things, whereas men don't understand it. They're not going through it. So we can't expect them to give us the same answers as we'd get
Yeah.
from our girlfriends. And so many times I've had women say to me, and I felt it as well, well, why can't you just sit down and tell me this? Of course, they're not going to be able to. They're not women. They don't understand what's going on hormonally, physically, or psychologically with us.
No.
So I think there's a different type of conversation to be had with our men than there are
Yeah.
with our girlfriends.
I find that what I found has worked, and I learnt this the hard way, is the best way that I found to talk to my husband is, please can you listen to what I'm going to say, and this is what would, and at the end of this I'm going to need a hug, or can we not go out tonight, or can you just bring me the big blanket? It's kind of like giving him an easy way to understand what I'm going to need from that conversation, because
Yeah.
otherwise, I mean, he's not a menopause expert, so I can't say to him, I've noticed that my mood is really erratic and my anxiety is coming back, so I don't know if my HRT is strong enough, but it's really hard to get an appointment, so I don't, I'm not, what do I expect him to do with to give me a
I
blood
kind of look
test?
at you and go, yeah, and what? And then we get frustrated that they're not giving us the answer
Yeah,
that we want to have. Hang on a minute, you meant to give me the
yeah.
answers. Where are they?
What are you for? So,
Yeah.
I have learned, if I sort of say, look, I'm really sorry, I can feel my mood going, and I know I'm being bitchy, I know I'm being a real cow.
Yeah.
Please don't take anything to heart. And often it's just saying that to him
Yeah.
makes you feel better, or sometimes you just need a hug.
Yeah. Yeah. And tell them what they need. They're
Yeah,
not mind readers. They're not
yeah,
mind readers. And, often I'll do the same as you. Okay, I just need to tell you what's going on right now with my body and my mind.
yeah,
It's like, okay, all right, let's sit down. And I think he looks terrified every time I say that to him.
yeah. But I want to go back to that thing that you said, where you said, don't treat your partner like your girlfriend.
Yes.
So is that do you mean kind of don't have the same expectations of empathy and understanding,
Not
or is
necessarily
it just that they're
empathy
not
and
going to?
understanding. They're not going to understand. Of course, they're not going to understand. They're not going through it. And I think sometimes I've had friends, I've had clients, I've done it myself, where if I was talking to a girlfriend, they'd respond in a certain way. And in a totally different way. Whereas men want to help. They go into hero mode. They go into rescue mode. They want to find a solution. Well, let's ring up and book an appointment with the doctor. No, I don't want to book an appointment. I just need you to understand rather than get me out of this situation.
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
need you to understand. And like you said, give me a hug, wrap me up in a sofa, get me a drink. Steve now says to me, if I'm feeling a little bit, what can I do for you? What can I get you? Can I get you a drink? Can I get you a blanket? Why don't I cook tonight? Or shall I let me run you a bath? Do you fancy a bath? So he'll go through this checklist of what he knows he's done in the past that works and try
oh,
all of them. And sometimes I go, I don't want any of that. I just need a
yeah. Does that ever get on your nerves though, when he says, what can I do to help? It's like, oh, now I've got to find, now I've got to tell you that. I don't have to carry everything. I don't know. You're expect. Because I wonder if, like, generationally, like, talking about my mum, and especially my mum's sister, who was just like a goddess among men, who had the best marriage of anyone ever. Oh, and I kind of sometimes struggle with. I was brought up with those women
Yeah.
as my, like, role models, and they wouldn't have said anything. They wouldn't have admitted that they were having a 3-week period. They wouldn't have said my moods are all over the place.
But how do we know that?
I don't know, with Auntie Val, the little I know, she was very reserved.
Mm.
And so I've been brought, my mum wasn't quite as bad as that, but the same, I sailed through my menopause, everything was fine. So
Yeah.
it's been like a kind of, I've sort of struggled a bit knowing what to say and what not to say, and also in that awful, as we know, in my 20s I was very externally validated, kind of not wanting to put someone off by what I said.
Yeah. But do you think that's just a generational thing, that it was they put up and they shut up. It was almost like a bit like us as children. We were seen but not heard. It was, maybe they did struggle. Clearly they did. I mean, both of us are laughing at our mothers and us having to move out and do this yo-yo. Right, I'm coming, I'm going, I'm coming, I'm going. Everything's in my car. When as soon as I was 17, it's like, right, I've got a spare bag for the week for the car if mum's in one of those moves. I'm moving. God bless them. My two best friends growing up, I was sort of camped out in their bedrooms for most of my mother's menopause. So it was. Is it that they just didn't talk about it, didn't acknowledge it? It wasn't spoken about, just like periods weren't spoken about when we were younger. Yeah. It was like, what the hell's happening? I've cut myself, it was oh, don't worry, that's just a period. Like, what? Are you going to get this every month for the rest of your life? It's going to be the burden of your life. But don't worry about it. It was kind of
it'll be fine. And then they'll stop and that'll be fine too. Yeah. It's like,
I don't know if they just everything was very almost Dickensian in some ways, that certain things as women, we weren't allowed to feel things. We weren't allowed to express how we felt. I mean, maybe it's a good thing that we can be as open as we are now, or as my mother sometimes says, I think things are far too open now. But it's totally, we are a different generation. We are speaking about these things, and we are exploring and expressing and investigating how we can do things better. Surely that's evolution.
I think it's good that we're talking about it, and I think it will be good as well if the talking about it leads to a change in the medical treatments for what women go through during menopause. Like the lack of, the biggest thing that I noticed. So I was not in menopause at all. Then I had hysterectomy. They took everything out, ovaries, everything. So I woke up in full-blown menopause, and I had imagined that I would wake up feeling horrific, just terrible. But actually it took I felt really good for the first 6 weeks, like I was recovering from the operation, but emotionally calmer than I've ever been. Just a sense of just being rational that was all new to me, like no emotional buffering, nothing buffeting. It was just calm, like I don't know, it was
how wonderful.
I was like, what is this? But I like it.
I need more. I need more. Bring me more.
And they didn't give me any HRT for the first 6 weeks because of recovery, blood clots, that kind of thing. So I was just fine. I was thinking, well, this is it, this down.
Now I know what my mother was talking about.
She was right. Sorry, Mum, I didn't believe you. And then about 6 or 7 weeks, I thought, oh no. And that's when everything started going wrong. But it was physical symptoms more than the emotional. Well, to me, apparently afterwards, my teenage son said I had been not quite as even keeled as I thought, and a bit snappier. But it was the physical things, like my hair started falling out, skin got really dry. Never had a hot flush or a night sweat. But physics. So after 6 weeks, you're allowed to have sex again. So that was the thing that I was, 6 weeks I've been waiting for that. But the weirdest thing happened. So there was still quite a lot of desire because it had been 6 weeks, but nothing happened. When I actually, so we did it, everything was fine, except that when it came to orgasming, it was really hard. It was really difficult to do. It took a long time, which you wouldn't expect after 6 weeks. I think it'd be pretty soon. But then it just didn't feel the same. It was sort of like and I thought, no, what is this now? And it was only when I spoke to the doctor finally, it was the hair loss that actually got me on the phone. So I can't cope with that. Everything else I thought I could sort of white knuckle my way through. But then it's time for you to go back on HRT. And I said, and I had a follow up with the gynecologist after. I said, it's orgasms. Like, is this what happened? Did you break something when you did the operation?
Can you put it back? Can you put it back?
Have you still got that in the jar?
Yeah.
And she said it's the testosterone thing. It's when your ovaries go, you stop making the same amount of testosterone. I think because you still produce some hormones somewhere else. I think it's your adrenal gland, but not in if your ovaries are there. And she said it's testosterone. Not having testosterone will affect how much you want sex, but it will also affect your sexual response, including even the strength of your orgasm. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So as soon as she put me on testosterone, I mean, that came back, which was amazing. But like no one
tells you. They don't ask you in follow-up, well, how's this? There's not a checklist of all of these things that it's not spoken about, is it, medically? Is
maybe our mums were going through that as well. You know, if like, and I think the women struggle to get testosterone as part of their HRT. That is something that I would really like to change, because it makes such a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, you've seen it, but you wouldn't have even been offered it, or no one would have spoken about it unless you raised it as a concern.
Exactly. Like why don't my orgasms work anymore? And she said, but I hadn't realized, obviously we know that testosterone is important sexually, but I didn't realize that it would have that kind of effect. But then talking to my friends, it's not something that gets offered easily to menopausal women. So women that are having to go private and have, pay for their own blood tests, which are about 50 or 60 pounds, just to find out what level you are. And the level that they say that you should be as a menopausal woman, I mean, it's tiny, and they say, oh, your levels are normal, but tiny, and it's not enough to make you work sexually. And that has made me really angry.
Are there any natural supplements that can replace that, Kate? Have you looked into it? If there's anything natural that would help? Because I know there's maca root extract, isn't there, that both men and women take to boost those hormones, but I'm not sure if that maca root have the same effect. I'm not sure.
I've been taking that for brain fog, and touch wood.
Oh,
it is actually I remembered something yesterday for the first time. that might be good. But in terms, I mean, I'm loath to say that nothing is going to work for you as well as testosterone, because obviously if you're given a hysterectomy because of a cancer, then your HRT options are suddenly limited, and those women are going to have to try and navigate this on their own. But if you're going through just a normal age-related menopause, really I would say there's nothing is going to work for you as well as testosterone. There just isn't. But if you go to your GP and they don't want to give it to you as part of your general HRT, you have to don't be shy to mention your sexual, if you have any sexual concerns, because it seems to be that it's still only licensed to give to women who are experiencing a massive lack of sexual desire. That's the only reason that a normal GP can give it to you. It seems fair.
It does.
Because it'll help with other things as well. It'll help with joint pain, energy levels, just your sort of general getting out of bed in the morning and feeling good about yourself.
We all need that, don't we?
I'm trying to think of the supplements that I've been taking. I mean, magnesium has been really good, but that's good for sleep. So I don't think it's going to improve your sexual response. It's really only been the testosterone that's worked for that.
That's interesting, isn't
it?
But
also, changing things sexually, you have to do, like, I said too much too early on about needing a pneumatic drill to feel
a pneumatic drill. I've just got this vision now of you with a hard hat on and your steel toe cap boots. They're coming to collect it in 5 minutes, quick. Can you imagine? Oh, Kate. I wasn't sure if Fizz Tell talking to you was a good idea now.
It shouldn't be the
I knew we would have lowered the tone.
It shouldn't be Fizz and Tell. It should be Fizz and gently hint at.
Yeah.
Be quite photographic. So I think changing things around, if you go into the menopause expecting things to change sexually, I think it's a much better way to go into it. And do things like it's probably a good time to shop for new sex toys, because like I say, those gentle butterfly kisses, they're probably not they're not going to cut it for you anymore, simply because you're not going to have the same amount of blood flow going down there. You're just not. You're going to have to give yourself a helping hand in every way. But also, when it comes to having sex with a partner, you're going to need more foreplay. You just are, and you're going to have to start doing things in more stimulating positions than you did before.
Yeah.
Your face looks really worried.
No,
I'm,
all sorts of
I
things are
need a
going.
pee.
I'm thinking if it wasn't sort of early in the morning and we're on our lovely tea, I think we both need a bottle of something to carry on this conversation there. Little bottle pouring in of bubbles. But why do we decide to do this early on a Monday morning? Tell me.
But another thing, it will be, you have to, this is a time of life when you have to start doing your pelvic floor exercises.
Yes. Now, my Pilates and yoga teacher does specific classes around pelvic floor and menopause. And it was probably the best thing that I ever did with Nikki, is when she does all this, right, learn how to clench on. And I actually had a few sessions with her, because I actually said, I can't even find my pelvic floor. I had some gynae ops, and everything had sort of gone all over the place. And before I started dating again, I said to her, okay, I really need some help, because I cannot find how to connect with this, because everything feels, I'm going through menopause and da, 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 da. And it was the one thing that actually, now I know everyone's starting to clench. So we're talking about this. Yeah. All these strange looks. And I always used to laugh in the yoga classes when she's right, now everyone connect with your pelvic floor. And I joked with her and said, do you look around and see who's really doing it? Because you can see the faces. So you have this real concentration of, how am I connecting? Am I connecting properly? Can I feel anything down there? What's actually going on? And you know, I've even had couples come to me post babies and post having children, who've said, I mean, I ended up with 2 emergency cesareans, so I was, I guess, lucky long term. But so many people have said to me, and clients mostly, that all of that feels so different, and it's hard to let anyone near them because they've got no sensation and no feeling. And I've always said, okay, so have some time on your own to try and connect with your own body and work out what works for you, so that you can help your partner to navigate what's going on, and shortcut and circumnavigate, you know, the maze of, we've tried this, tried that. Here's a little checklist. Here's a checklist I've prepared for you to work through. So I think it's one of those things that, don't be shy to try and work out for you what's going on with your body. Our bodies change constantly, and you kind of got to navigate it on your own a little bit as well.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, because it's going to be different. And I think the thing that I wasn't aware of how much the gynae changes would happen, and how much they would affect how much you feel yourself during sex. It's not like it's going to be worse for your partner necessarily. It's that you're gonna I remember that thing. Strange.
Yes, I could do that really easily a while back.
It just doesn't feel the same. Yeah, so spending some time, I mean, that would be a really good thing to do as part of your own navigating your way through menopause, is just have like one night a week for self-care. And you just self-care yourself, you know. Yeah, that would be like the best way of navigating it. To remembering what feels nice for you, like trying out a new toy, doing the exercises, like maybe getting one of the kind of internal exercises that will tone you up that way. The more that you can do to get back into what feels nice for you, I think the easier as well it will be on your partner, because there might be, if you've been married for a long time and you've kind of, lots of people end up building up a sexual routine that works really well for them. It's kind of choreographed, and it could be that a lot of those things are going to be changing, and that would really damage your partner's confidence if, well, this used to do things in seconds before. Like,
absolutely. I was about to say, it's about the partner and how they feel as well, because often they think that they're not turning you on anymore. And I get told that so many times by clients, is, I don't turn my wife on anymore, I don't turn my girlfriend on anymore. And I'm thinking, okay, you have to navigate what's going on for her, but they take it personally. And this is where those conversations do need to take place with whoever you're with. And if you're starting the dating journey, I think it's even more important when you're single to really understand your body and what works for you before you get into a relationship with somebody. Because if you don't understand what makes you tick, you can't expect someone else to come in with a magic cure to be able to just say, okay, I understand all of these things and I'm gonna fix it. Because a lot of women will come to me and say, well, I've met this guy and I've been out with this one and it doesn't work with him and it doesn't work with him, and no man knows how to satisfy me. And I think, well, do you know how to satisfy yourself? To start off with, and 9 times out of 10 they just don't. So it's always an interesting conversation to have with people around that.
Because I mean, you know, my dating philosophy, so I believe that once you're in a steady relationship and living together, married, committed, once you're in a committed relationship, a committed exclusive relationship, I believe you should I believe you should have as much sex as you possibly can within that relationship. I think it's the easiest way of connecting, of feeling emotionally close to each other. It's the best thing you can do for your relationship. But I also believe that in dating, it's not the best thing to do for a relationship.
You and I are completely on the same page. I mean, I tell people, wait a couple of months.
Yeah.
Wait as long as you possibly can. So, and I know you've got the same philosophy with that.
Yeah, I mean, I've written books about it. I truly believe it's the way that you can keep your as a woman, keep your confidence at its highest while you're navigating dating. So it weeds out people that aren't genuinely interested in you. It stops you bonding with someone who might not have been the best person for you. It stops you, emotionally seeing all these things in them that probably, maybe that's not really true. It keeps your feet on the ground when they're not wrapped around someone's neck. So when you're dating in that chaste way of mind, again, that's another reason why you have to be really good at satisfying yourself. Because I don't want any woman to think that my advice would be, don't let anything down south for years, until you're married or something, because you need to have orgasms. You need to have that sexual response.
Well, there's so many health benefits as well.
So many. Blood pressure, it helps you sleep.
Yeah.
It can ward off depression. It's one of the best things that you can do. So if you have to take
my free.
So getting to know what works for you at every different stage of your life is, I think, a really important thing. One of the best things you could do, say, at the weekend.
Yes.
Is
something for the weekend, Kate.
But remember, you are going to need more stimulation now. So go up if you go on a review website. Sometimes you start a sentence and wish you hadn't. I'm going to plug on it. Go on to, if you feel that you want to upgrade things, go onto a review website and look for reviews that mention that the toys are very powerful. Because over the age of 50, you need more powerful but quiet.
Maybe that's your next thing. You need to go and research them and write a book on what, women over 50. Here are your pneumatic toys for the over 50s.
I did write a piece for Reader's Digest about the best toys so I'll send you the link for that.
Yeah, do.
It's industrial strength now, not
That's
look for things that plug in to the wall.
And don't give yourself an electric shock.
Don't have
lots of visions. I've got all visions happening. This is why all of a sudden where I'm living, there's the electricity dropping in the local areas. Everyone's taking my advice. Now listen to Kate's advice and we're going to have a power outage across the country.
But we won't mind.
No, we'll all be happy and relaxed and chilled about it. Oh, Kate, how funny. That's brilliant. I think we'll leave it there. We've run out of time, unfortunately. But I would so love to catch up with you and do this again on perhaps a different subject, because you're so knowledgeable and you've done so much research in this area and you've worked with so many people to help them, that it's wonderful. So how can people get hold of you and your wonderful books?
If you go to my website, lovekatetaylor.com. it's all there.
Lovekatetaylor.com. I love that. I'll share it in the blurb. And so if anyone needs to get hold of Kate, you'll be able to find Kate. If you like what we're doing here with Fizz Tell, please like and subscribe. And until next time, stay well and see you soon. Thank you.